What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to Taking Command with Josh Taylor, and we have a ton to talk about. Obviously, after that game, not at all how I expected this one to go. 36-27, tried to come back and just fell short. Obviously, that first half was probably the ugliest first half I have ever seen out of this Washington team. I mean, just flat. Defense, offense, both sides of the ball. I mean, you really can't blame just one part of this team. It just looked like we were not prepared at all for this game. I mean, that first half going down the way we did, but the offensive line looked terrible to start the game. Absolutely terrible. And everyone was like, how come our offense isn't doing what it did last week? Because we had no time. Aiden Hutchinson was just having his way with us in that first half. And of course, we saw the impact when he actually came off the field in the second half, how we actually finally started having some success. And that was not just a coincidence. Aiden Hutchinson, 3 sacks in that first half, just ridiculous. I mean, I knew he was a beast at Michigan. He was worthy of a first round pick. You know, he could have gone 1 overall to Jacksonville. Obviously, they have a good player as well, as we learned last week. But still, this offensive line, who has been praised from last year, looked great. Pass protection, run blocking, everything has well overperformed what it has expected it to be. But just today, that offensive line was awful. And obviously, I think a huge part is not having Brian Robinson. A true running game will change this offense completely, open up so much. But still, even if you're Gibson, even if you're offensive line, even if you're Wentz, you have to get things going. There is absolutely no reason to be held scoreless in the first half with these playmakers that we have. Even if you don't have time, I get it. But still, going down 22-0 to the Lions, not at all in my bingo card for this Sunday. Once the offense showed heart and tried to fight back, absolutely, Carlton. I 100% agree with you. They absolutely tried to fight back. Fell short. Obviously, I want to talk about. There's no order to this show, by the way. Like, I'm just going straight out live, telling it exactly, what's coming off my head right now. So y'all drop some comments and stuff. I'm gonna be on here for like 25, 30 minutes or so, but still, just the decision to go for 2 at the end made absolutely no sense at all. No sense. And then you miss the extra point and completely take the game away. Obviously, we weren't going to win the game anyways. But I want to know the reason for going for 2 there at the end of the game after, Antonio Gibson, Jahan Dotson scores. We're finally coming back. Go for 2. Don't get it. After, they've been showing pressure. I get it. You've got momentum, but still, why take the game completely away from that? It's still just a 1 possession game. And then you miss the extra point, just completely takes any chance of coming back out. And then slide kicks like a 5-yard onside kick. Don't get it back. But this defense, I've been saying it, and I'm not ready to harp on players, which is what really pissed me off about what Del Rio was saying about Jamin Davis last week, because it seemed like Jamin Davis was the only guy who gave a fuck this whole first half of this team, the only guy making tackles and stops. And I'm going to do a film breakdown this week whenever the All-22 drops. That long touchdown, or not touchdown, the long run up the left with DeAndre Swift, when Jamin Davis plugs his hole, makes him shift out to the left, Cole Holcomb and Percy Butler, who's lined up in the linebacker in that play, are completely blocked about 30 yards down the field, completely taken out of the play. And then DeAndre Swift on half an ankle just runs up the field. And if it was 100%, he would have walked into the end zone just like he did at another play later on in the game. So I don't want to hear nothing this week from Jack Del Rio about, Jamin Davis this, Jamin Davis that. No, he was the only guy who was getting stops and stopping the run game. Outside of that, with 3 of the interior offensive linemen who were out for the game, they had all backups in. They were running the ball up the gut on us. And to be honest, and I hate to say it, but I'm looking at Deron Payne and John Allen. Deron Payne made his presence known as the game went on, getting to the quarterback, putting pressure on Goff. But then Cole Holcomb, and then having David Mayo in the game. I'm going to look back at how many snaps when the stats and everything come out later on, but I'm looking at Jack Del Rio saying, why are you putting David Mayo on the field? I don't care how bad Jamin Davis was last week. I think he played great this game. And I got some Lions fans in the chat. You know what? I have nothing against the Lions. Love the Lions. Love them after Hard Knocks. Coach Dan Campbell, I got to talk to him a ton at the Senior Bowl. Just a stand-up guy. Absolutely, I would go to war with that guy if I'm a player. Huge Dan Campbell fan. Just hearing him talk, and like I said, got to interview him a couple times at the Senior Bowl. Just a phenomenal guy. Well-coached team. Those guys play on fire. And the scary thing is they don't even have Jameson Williams yet. So Lions fans, your offense is going to get even better. You're just going to go as far as Goff takes you. And I think, he's going in the right direction. You're building that line. You're giving weapons on him. So Lions fans, you know what? I'm going to give you kudos. Y'all absolutely deserve this win. But we still were in a position to win this game. It's not even just the comeback. It is just this defense, the bending and not breaking. And then this week, we finally just broke too many times. We rely too much on not giving up these big plays. And I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. I'm not 100% ready to put the blame on these players because Jack Del Rio and this 80s and 90s scheme, like this isn't Denver. This isn't how you used to coach back in the day. This is a completely different league. You sign a guy like William Jackson III who plays in man coverage, who plays on wide receivers' hips, and he does it very well in Cincinnati. And you take him and put him in a zone scheme and force him to play completely different. This is like going on franchise mode in Madden and getting a defense that uses like right outside linebackers and getting a guy like Chase Young and putting him in coverage, like which we saw plenty of times from Del Rio too last year. And before that, Montez Sweat going in coverage. Chase Young going in coverage. He just doesn't put his guys in a position to win the game. So I don't get it. I'm not sure where do you go from here defensively? What do you do next if you're Ron Rivera? Like I said, I wasn't too happy with Ron either going for that 2-point conversion. But just at the end of the day, we saw the blueprint of how to beat Washington. We saw it a little bit last week against the Jaguars when they were finally getting pressure on us. Travon Walker was, causing havoc, had that interception. The Lions showed you have to get pressure on Winston, just force things. But the thing is, and it took a little bit for Scott Turner to do this, and finally in the second half, he made the adjustments. Scott Turner made the adjustments like he had to. He saw the Lions were bringing pressure, getting to Carson Wentz, and then once Hutchinson got off the field, obviously it wasn't as bad. But still, Scott Turner started doing these short throws, these quick passes, getting it to these little screen drop-offs to Gibson, to Curtis Samuel. And then things started opening up down the field to Jahan Dotson, to Logan Thomas. That's what you have to do. So Scott Turner, he's not on my shit list this week. I liked what I saw. There's a couple things just early on. The pressure was too much to get anything. We started out with terrible field position and, playing with our backs against the wall. And then once again, Aiden Hutchinson in that front 4, front 7, they were bringing linebacker blitz, a couple DB blitzes as well. You just didn't have the opportunity to do anything. So it just took way too long in the first half to get anything going, no kind of rhythm. And then the Lions were just hitting on rhythm the whole time, whether if it was the run game up the middle, which should have been non-existent with 3 interior offensive linemen out, and with the defensive line that we have, who performed very well last week. I gave them their kudos. The second half, they played well. They got pressure on Goff finally. They started stopping the run more, but that first half, Swift, I told you, it doesn't matter if that guy's got 1 foot, a half an ankle. DeAndre Swift is an absolute playmaker in this league, and so is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for his size, I love the way he plays. Obviously, not even just a fantasy guy, but St. Brown, I loved him at USC. The thing is, he was picked like 30 picks behind where we got De'Ami Brown. So that hurts even more knowing we could have drafted him and we would have a loaded wide receiver room. But still, like I said, I'm going to give kudos to the Lions. They straight up played their game. They had a straight game plan against Washington and executed it well. And still, we had a chance to come back there. But Goff, 256 yards, 4 touchdowns. Didn't have some crazy performance, but he hit all the big-time throws, especially to Amon-Ra St. Brown on those 2 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, like I said, Scott Turner made the adjustments. Jack Del Rio did not. It was just our defense was a boat with a hole in it, and water just kept coming in. and we kept sinking. It just kept getting ugly. And this is, I think, 3 straight games that the Lions have scored over 30 points, but still, there is absolutely no reason for that, especially 22-0. You cannot tell any team to go down 22-0 and come back. I don't care if you're playing a college team. It doesn't matter. You can't get that out of your team. Now, let's take a look at a couple stats. Washington actually led with first downs. We had 21. They had 17. So big woof there. We had more plays than them. They just had more explosive plays. Total yards, the Lions had 425. We had 396. Majority of theirs came in the first half. They had 191 yards rushing with a beat up offensive line. And we just didn't play discipline at all. We had 88 yards rushing. That's where it's killing us. We don't have Brian Robinson yet. And, can't wait. Obviously, he's sitting out for a good reason, like get to 100%. But I'm just saying, like, when he does come back, this rushing attack is going to look a lot better, and it's going to open up a lot more for the passing game, because we're depending on Gibson to get going. We're depending on these little end arounds with Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, even J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson. We're just leaning too much onto that. We don't have a true running game, and the Lions showed you what happens when you have a true run game. 191 rushing yards. I mean, it's just, it balances things out for you. We can't just sit here and force throws and tell, Carson Wentz to stay back in the pocket when he's getting rushed nonstop and just to try to find something to happen. That's when these interceptions happen. It's like playing Madden. Like, in all honesty, if you throw the ball so many times, he threw the ball 46 times a day. That's a lot. And that just tells you we do not have a running game. Carson Wentz, 30 for 46, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Made some big time throws, but I'm still thinking that is asking way too much for him. We saw a lot of good. There's big opportunities there for Wentz. He makes big time throws. Does he make terrible throws sometimes and bad decisions? Yes. We saw the high one over Logan Thomas. A couple little drop picks there at the end. Malcolm Rodriguez, who is a beast, by the way, for Detroit fans. Love Rodriguez at Oklahoma State. Y'all got a good one at linebacker. Time of possession, we had the ball longer than them. Penalties weren't really much this game at all, but sacks, 5-3. I mean, like I said, we were getting pressure there, but the Lions just beat us at every single phase of the game, and I hate to say it. We just straight up got punched in the mouth and sat there for a while, took it, didn't know how to respond, and then finally, second half, we started hitting them with some body shots, and then we hit them with some uppercuts and started getting home. But it just wasn't there. I mean, you can't – 21 rushes, 88 yards is not a running game by us. Carson Wentz is our second leading rusher with 23 yards. That's not ideal. That is not ideal. Surprised we don't see more of Williams just because he's more of a power back, and that kind of balances things out. Not saying I want him to get like 20 carries or something like that, but still, I'm surprised we don't try to get somewhat of a running game going. Scott Turner relies on some of these trick plays, some of these end arounds and these short. He uses more of the passing game as a running game with screens and these little drop offs, check downs, and stuff like that. Which, like I said, I fully expect that to change once we get Brian Robinson back. But still, just a disappointing game. I mean, not at all how I saw this one going. Obviously, this is the NFL. You're not gonna win every single game. But still, it just didn't look like we were there and even tried in the first half. I think the urgency wasn't there from the defense. It wasn't there from the offensive line and special teams, whether if it was Dax Milne coming out of the end zone. That boy looks terrified every time he comes out of the end zone. If we're not using Gibson like fully in the running game, then give him some of those reps at the kickoff that he's been taking in camp and taking in practice. Not sure why Dax Milne is back there. Dude was getting lit up all game, and I know the coverage was not helping him at all, but still takes, these too many of these ill-advised returns out of the end zone when he does not need to, and then just special teams on the kick. Joey Sly, these are the kind of games where your kicker does not come back. The awful onside kick, the missing of an extra point. I don't know if that's the nail in the coffin for your kicker. Like he didn't miss like some game-winning kick or anything like that, but still, at the end of the day, it's just, you got to show up. and we just didn't show up. I don't know if it was coaching wise, but Del Rio, uh, something's got to change, and I think it's got to start now. I'm sick of this blaming Jamin Davis, blaming the other players on the field, young guys that you're putting in a bad position. At the end of the day, play more of this man coverage, be physical. I want to see our guys like they were last week with Derek Forrest going after this interception, just being aggressive, going after the ball. There's just too many missed tackles. The DeAndre Swift play where he catches it on 3rd and long, gets up and walks into the end zone. Where's the urgency from the defense? I don't even care what the play is. Where is the urgency from any of the guys? The best playmaker they have on offense, you can argue it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but where is the urgency to just stop one of their best guys on offense when he's falling down, catches it, stands up, and literally is able to just stroll across the field on the other side and walk into the end zone untouched? That's the thing that just drives me nuts. And Carson Wentz getting sacked 5 times, once again, not ideal at all. Aiden Hutchinson is a stud. We struggle against these athletic, fast defensive end guys, and it's going to happen throughout the season. I'm interested to see some matchups with the Eagles next week, so I'm going to take a good look at everything they did against the Lions and obviously their game against the Vikings this week. But still, these fast, athletic guys, we do not do a good job of setting the edge with these edge rushers. We saw it with Travon Walker. I think Leno did a lot better against Walker than he did with Hutchinson. But Hutchinson, man, he's a different pass rusher. He is everything in the world I hope Chase Young can do when he comes back. That's what a top pick is supposed to look like, man. His motor, that dude has so many tools in his pass rushing. There's not much you can do with that. Jahan Dotson is absolutely a stud. Obviously, I love my guy with the Penn State flag. I don't like to exaggerate, but I would die for Jahan Dotson. That dude is going to be a good one. Honestly, probably has the most sure hands on our team, and that's even with Terry. Like, Terry is legit, but Jahan Dotson had the best catch rate out of every wide receiver in the draft last year. And the fact that we traded back to get him is just mind-blowing. I mean, if you look at it, he's got 3 touchdowns in his first 2 games in the NFL. I think he had 12 last year for Penn State. So just double-digit touchdowns. Jahan's going to be a beast. You've got to find him ways to get the ball, and we did that. But the key was just getting the time for Carson Wentz. Yep, this is probably another Lions fan. Should have been a lot worse than all. Actually, honestly, it absolutely could have been much worse than it was, which is sad. That first half was awful. That first half, there was no reason for the first half to not be blown out like 35-0. I mean, it was just punt, turnover, punt. Just couldn't do anything. There was no rhythm on offense. And once again, the play on both sides of the ball starts in the trenches. That's why you use all these first-round picks. And that's why there's such high value on the offensive line and defensive line in the NFL. That's where the play starts. That's where you dictate everything. And we just got straight up manhandled. If you told me that one team would have straight dominated on the defensive line throughout the whole game, I would have said it was us because of our defensive line and because of 3 guys on the offensive line being out for the Lions. There was no excuse. Even we got 3 sacks, like, cool. There was no reason for them to be running the ball that they did. And we just didn't take advantage of it. I just did not see that urgency at all from the defense. And it sucks. Like, we had great opportunities to win this game if it didn't get out of hand the way that it did. But then also in that second half, there was still some way that we could have come back and won that game after going down 22-0 at halftime. So opportunities were there. It was ugly. But you can't harp too long on it because you do have to go back home and play the Eagles, which is obviously a monumental game with, how the season could end up. The NFC East matchup, you've got to win this one at home. You realistically want to split this series with the Eagles. But just looking at it with their offensive weapons, their wide receivers, they look legit. We'll see how they look against the Vikings. But against the Lions, we did a couple things against the Lions, but the Eagles took way more advantage. AJ Brown had a field day against them. I think it was like a shootout in that game. It was a high scoring game. But still, it's just we need some kind of change. I don't want to hear the same stuff from Ron Rivera, like, oh, well, this no. Something's got to change. There's no way you just go out there with this exact same defense that you showed today and expect any kind of results, any kind of change. We are going to get killed by AJ Brown and those playmakers. I'll even say Jalen Hurts on the ground. He is going to tear us apart if we don't change something in that secondary. Derek Forrest has looked phenomenal in his first 2 games starting. Been a highlight. I think Jamin Davis had a big bounce back game today. He had a sack, some big tackles, stopped the run well, a lot better than Cole Holcomb did. I get the flashes of Cole Holcomb, but still he was a 5th round pick. I'm not ready to put some high regard on him. I think he has really good moments, but then he has some terrible ones. I can't wait for that all 22 to come out, because that one run where DeAndre Swift up the left side, he got blown up. Percy Butler too, man, got blocked like 30 yards down the field. It was as ugly as it gets. We just got out physical, outplayed, out heart, like everything, every aspect of the game. The Lions showed up and they did what they had to. More yards than us. If you just look at it on paper, you're like, okay, this is a pretty close game. Offensively, it looks like the Lions probably edged this one out, and it was just uglier to even watch it. And then NFL Sunday ticket breaks, and you're like, you can't even watch another game. So we're stuck here watching this game. Luckily, we did start to come back a little bit because it was getting unbearable to watch. And I've been through some ugly Washington games. Obviously, Detroit fans, I know y'all have too. Like I said, I'm not going to take anything away from the Lions. I'm not going to sit here and act like the Lions are the worst team in the NFL, because it looks like the Colts are, because they got spanked by the Jags today. Just goose egg. So as much as we lost, Colts fans, I know you hate Carson Wentz for whatever reason, but Matt Ryan had 3 picks and no touchdowns today and looked awful, looked washed. He looked like what y'all have been saying about Carson Wentz all offseason. So I don't want to hear it. Yes, there's some bad with Carson Wentz, but as you saw today, there are some still really good with Carson Wentz. So I will take the really good with the bad, because, at the end of the day, every quarterback has bad games, but not every quarterback can make some of these big-time throws. Second half, we saw what we needed out of Carson Wentz. The offensive line gave him time, mostly because Hutchinson wasn't on the field, which makes a huge difference. Akuda was banged up, and I like seeing Akuda finally bounce back. He got a lot of hate for being, a top draft pick. I know he's been banged up. I really liked him at Ohio State. So I like seeing these guys that I cover in the draft coming back, having some of these, bounce back games and coming back from that injury. But still, the Lions are just a good team. They're good. They're solid. They're a good team, greatly coached team. There's some playmakers. They're building this team the right way. Playmakers on defense with Akuda, Aiden Hutchinson, and then you have guys like DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Goff, he's not as bad as he used to be. I think he's much better, but it helps when you get these guys. And like I said, they don't have Jameson Williams yet, so their offense is going to take off even more. Obviously, my guy Jammo, y'all know I'm a closet Alabama fan. I just can't say it because I cover Penn State. But still, Lions are going to be solid. They're making some moves. But Washington, man, we can't let Carson Wentz get hit 5 times and just look that bad in the first half. I think at the end of the day, just coming out that flat is just bad coaching. And then once again, offensive line got ate up, just straight up dominated to start the game. Looked much better late and started to open up downfield. That's the recipe to win the game. You can't expect Carson Wentz or Goff or whoever your quarterback is to get hit like that in literally like 2 seconds every single time he drops back and expect to do anything. So the recipe to beat Washington, you bring the rush. You force them to set up these quick throws. And we did that in the second half. So Scott Turner, go back to some of those plays. Expect teams to bring this rush, but then also expect them to disguise and drop back when it looks like they're bringing a rush. So I'm going to rewatch this one, obviously. Like I said, when the all 22 comes out, which has been coming out late for some reason, NFL.com has been pissing me off. The whole thing sucks. Sunday ticket sucks. we suck. So it's kind of one big mess of a Sunday. But when the all 22 comes out, you best believe I'm going to be going back to some of these big plays and breaking it down. Like I did week one. I got a little bit of a better setup, so it's going to look better than the first one did. That first one, I was literally just sitting out there watching football on my TV and recording it on my phone. So y'all stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. Gonna have those plays coming up hopefully in the next night or two. It's supposed to come out tomorrow at 6. It's likely going to come out Tuesday like it did last time, late Tuesday night. So that's what I got next up. We're going to FedEx Field next week. That place was jumping week one. It looks like it's going to be jumping again. It's pretty much sold out. So I think Eagles fans travel super well. So expect all the local media tweets to be like, oh, there's a lot of Eagles fans here. Yeah, because they're playing well, barring how the Vikings game goes. And we look terrible against the Lions today. So if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm absolutely trying to go to this game. That's just how it is. But you want to change that narrative. Like I said, this was an opportunity to make a statement, not even just for the media, but for us, just to say like, hey, we can beat teams like this. Because I said, if you can't beat the Jags and you can't beat the Lions, who on your schedule are you going to beat this season? We beat one, and we saw how bad this team can be against the Lions. We saw how good this team can be against the Jags. But still, going down the stretch, got to beat the Eagles. Like I said, you have to sweep them. This is the one to win. Going to Philly at night for a Monday night game, the return of Carson Wentz to Philly, that's not the ideal one where you try to lean on sweeping the series or splitting the series. You have to win this one at FedEx. And at this point, it's not looking good. Like I said, we'll see how they look against the Vikings. But what I saw from the Eagles week one, that is a well-oiled machine. That offense was not lacking anything. And our defense has holes in it. And from my experience as a Washington fan, there's nothing that says, hey, this is going to change. Hey, this is schematically what we're going to do different next week. Hey, we're not going to point the fingers at our young first-round linebacker that we don't put in position, that we drafted out of Kentucky when he's playing a certain way in a certain defense. And we're going to put him in a completely different defense and then just publicly talk about our disappointment and how he played in his first game of the season against the Jags. But still, nonetheless, I'm going to publicly say that Jack Del Rio, I'm disappointed in how he performed since the day he got here. So instead of pointing fingers at Jamin Davis, which did he play well that first game? No. But still, at the end of the day, when your coaching still sucks, your scheme still sucks, you only have yourself to point at. Put these guys in a position to succeed. Start running more man coverage. Jam at the line with some of these guys. Force the defensive line to get to the quarterback and make quarterbacks force out these throws. This is what bugs the heck out of me. We're sitting back in these zones, leaving these open opportunities for someone to be open. Even when we get pressure, someone is going to be open. So jam them at the line, play man, whether you're blitzing your linebackers or not, or you're bringing them back into coverage, play land, stick on those wide receivers and be physical with them. I don't care about the opportunity to get flagged. I know this is a tough league for DBs, but still, I would much rather play a physical man coverage than this spotty, soft, wide open zone coverage where we're letting guys just have time to find open man. That's the thing. In a zone scheme, someone is open every single play, and they're having the time to get there. So rush the quarterback, play man, be physical, jam at the line to get the wide receivers off the routes and give you maybe another second in coverage, and try to get turnovers. I feel like we don't get enough turnovers. We had the big one to steal the game last week. Let's get more of that. Teams are not scared of us. The Lions were trying to drive down and go deep before the half ended. They didn't care. They were not terrified of our defense at all until we started getting somewhat of a pressure in that second half. No one on that field for Detroit was scared of our team. And like I said, luckily they punted right before halftime, but they were trying to drive down the field. Pass. They were trying to score again on us, and he was throwing deep balls. He had no worry in the world at our coverage ability. So just super disappointing. Lost a shit ton of money today, especially because I bet Washington, and Jonathan Taylor did not score in my touchdown bet, which could have won me $3,000. He was the only one in the 1:00 games that did not score. So hopefully these afternoon games bounce back for me. Got some other bets riding. So comment what y'all think. Speak your mind. I read through these all the time. So just let me know what you think about this performance. What hope you have going into next week, going back home. If you're going to be there, let me know. I'm going to be in section 105. So hit me up, and love to meet everybody, whether we're tailgate or whatever. I'm going to get there super early like I did last time. But let me know what you think. Predictions. Watch this Eagles game. See how they, play, what they do well, how the Vikings, exploit them, do some big things against them. And we'll talk about it. I'm going to do that film breakdown, and then I'll do a preview show next week on the Eagles. So subscribe to the channel. Like if you enjoy what you see. But I want y'all to be able to, chop it up in here and drop and vent too, because we need it. After this game, we need it. And as always, follow me on Twitter at Josh Taylor FB. And this show is always presented by Manscaped. So check out manscaped.com. Use my promo code COMMAND20 if you use their products. And if you don't, you're probably as messy as that defense looked today. So highly recommend go over to manscaped.com, get 20% off your whole purchase and free shipping when you use my promo code. Guys, we're 1-1. I guess I'll take it. We could be 0-2, so it could be worse, but still there's a lot that needs to change. Offense was clicking, but it took way too long, and the defense, and not at one point today, was like, this is the defense I was looking for. We just could not get a stop. It was just a nonstop bleeding. Third downs, you would have thought the Lions were 13 for 13. They were 4 and 13, probably because they got all their first downs early in the drive and just kept driving down the field. But still, let me know what y'all think, man. It was a tough one to watch, but someone's got to do it, and I'm going to watch it again next week. Like I said, I'll be there. So subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all later on this week with the All-22, breaking down the good and a lot of the bad from this game. And then I'll catch y'all at FedEx Field on Sunday.